Sure thing, boss. Or Ross,
And
whatever your name is.
then I get to align cameras or something. What am I gonna do here? I'm gonna do this and that and hey, that's not too bad, is it? No, that's nearly acceptable. Just sort of shoving things willy nilly. There.
I just
Oh, what the hell?
tried. I think maybe the reason why I was causing problems there with the link was because I tried for the first time ever. For the first time ever, I tried clicking to go to click into your meet there while I was not Wi-Fi'd. I just was doing it over satellite, and it was just having all kinds of weird things, and it wouldn't even join. It wouldn't even let me join, and so I thought, oh well, whatever. We'll just go back to Wi-Fi, and it let me straight on. I don't know. It's too technical for me, Ross. I don't understand. I'm just an old man, an old fuddy-duddy. So, whatever it is.
It all worked perfectly fine. It's all good. I'm trying to match these out. Oh, they're in the wrong order, and I don't even have a background picture for Stillwell Brewing Company. It's like we're not even.
Oh, what's that one then?
Things seriously.
What's that one then you got?
Oh, this one. This is an Annapolis Brewing, but I think.
Oh, yes, so it is.
I mean, I recognize the logo, but I think this is an old one. I don't think this is their proper, fully expanded through to both sides. This is the problem when you take pictures and then they update everything. Like, I've still got my old one for Old Biddy / Great Roads in their alternate wrong pandemic. See, the problem was we started this during a pandemic. I think that was the mistake. That was the mistake right there. Oh, good. That one is still available. But guess what? I'm looking at the Stillwell Brewery, and it says, sold out. Like, well, that was fun. I hope we like it, but for the most part, it does not matter.
Isn't it funny how was this purely coincidental that you were picking English ales today off? Because there was that thread that was started by somebody on the Maritime Craft Brewing group on Facebook and asked what was their favorite ESB.
Oh, maybe I was thinking about that as well, because I did see that one come through, and I wanted to pitch for the Beachstone Bitter from Sober Island, but I'm not sure if that one is just a bitter or if that is technically an ESB. So I couldn't be bothered looking it up. I was busy having my son spit up all over me.
Yeah, well, as it happened, Stillwell in the comments that people had
did it pop up?
Was fairly well represented.
Excellent.
Best bitter.
That's good.
Yeah.
But it does say, see, it's an English style pale ale, but it does say it's going to be a bitter. Yeah. So I'm curious about that. And the Fenwick's one, I can't really find anything other than people have heard of things from England and they think like there's just the UK, there's the Union Jack all over it, and there's this guy, I don't know if General Fenwick or something like that. Anyway, we'll talk about the cans in a minute. Yep. Are you all set? How are you feeling? How are you? Are you well?
I'm raring to go.
Lovely.
I can't wait to get stuck into some British style beers, mate.
Here is an important question. Do you have the well sought after salt box English whatever thing? What was it called? Yes.
You drank it, did you not? You said several weeks ago.
I drank that one alone when you weren't available. Right. It was several months ago, and I loved it. So that is your bonus, especially if these two don't quite pop our socks off. That is you get to have the extra.
Will I be drinking that then alone on air while you sup water?
Yep.
Or yeah. Okay. I'm clearly you've got the thin end of the wedge. If it's that good, yeah.
It is. Yes. Oh, yes. It has to be quaffed. You can. I mean, I'm hoping you'll share it with Rebecca, but regardless of all of these things,
no chance.
Everything, all at once. I am Ross. Joining me is Ian, my co-host, and together, where I am the least English of us all, drinking ESBs, we are attempting to drink Nova Scotia dry because we did have a conversation, our traditional conversation. Actually, we were meant to. This week was supposed to be an extra special one. We're going to be talking to Les from Roof Hound Brewing, but he was not available. He had a family gathering to go to that got rescheduled. So he went to his family gathering, and he was adorably apologetic about it. He just kept saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that." I said, honestly, We drop this all the time. We're sitting around and drinking a beer is about the least important thing you could think of doing. Don't worry about it. So we hope to have him in the future very soon. But in the meantime, we looked up and we tried to find. We were on nearly into the ESBs, and then I noticed that I wanted to do something with this Fenwick ale from Annapolis Brewing with the Union Jack all over it, and it's got kind of a. They both say English style pub ale or English pub ale or English pale ale, so they're not exactly ESBs, but I think they're probably comparable.
What choice have you got? What really? Because they're just English style ales. I mean, the ESB, it's still an English style ale, regardless of whether or not it's classed as a bitter or an ale. It's still an ale.
Well, because this one. So first up, we have from Stillwell Brewing Company, and you acquired these cans. They're brewed, cellared, and packaged in Halifax. So Stillwell is in Halifax. I love this can. You can feel there's texture on it. It's got it's rough. It's like sandpaper. I do like it.
A matte finish.
Matte finish. That's the one. Right. But it does say best bitter on it. So it's a bitter, but then it says beneath that English style pale ale. So is it just bitter because it's English style? We'll look up a couple things about English styles and bitters and pale ales and what the difference is. Luckily, we have an authentic British person in an authentic British hat to explain everything. I don't even need the internet this week. You can tell us everything.
Well, for a start, I'm not sure whether this is an authentic British hat because it probably came from Frenchies.
I won't call you up.
But the other, people would ask for a pint of best. You would go into a pub and ask for a pint of best. Literally, that would be your offering. Yeah, give us a pint of best, and you would get a best bitter. Now, it doesn't mean to say it's the best bitter. I mean, what the hell is the best bitter? Goodness knows, only knows. But you literally would ask for a pint of best if you went into a pub. They might look at you a bit strange now if they're students, and they'll be like, what do you mean, a best? What do you mean? But traditionally, you could walk into your local and ask for a pint of best, and it would be a good pint of bitter that they've got on tap or on draft. So I'm imagining that Stillwell Brewery have jumped all over that because they've gone for a traditional style of English or British bitter.
Well,
so that's
I'm excited that they've hopped on the word best in describing things. So bitter is an English style of pale ale. Okay. Has been used in England to describe pale ale since the 19th century. Brewers used the term pale ale before the introduction of pump clips. I'm afraid to click on that. What's a pump clip? Customers would ask for bitter to differentiate it from mild ale. Bitter became the most popular drink of draft beer, the national drink of England. In Scotland, bitter is known as either light or heavy, depending on the strength, color, and body. Cask, conditioned, blah, 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 blah. Style, subtypes. I mean, the word best came up in... Aha! Light ale is a subtype. Session or ordinary bitter. Best or special bitter. The disappearance of weaker bitters from some brewers' rosters mean best bitter is actually the weakest in the range. That's curious. So a best bitter means the least alcohol content. And it is. We're starting at this one because it is a 4.5%. Which,
that's not weak. That's not weak, Ross. A 4.5% beer of bitter in the UK when I was growing up, that'd be a reasonable strength bitter. Because a 3.5 to 4% is a good sessionable ale. 4.5%, I might argue, is a little on the stronger side. But I know we're in Canada, and 4.5%, you would just laugh at that. It's almost like a light.
It's an economical choice, I'm convinced. Because you go, if you're going out for a pint in the UK, you want to go and have 5 or 6 pints. So you want to have like a 4%, a 4.3, something like that. But in Canada, you sort of, well, I'm going to the pub tonight, but I can only afford one. So what have you got? Well, we've got this double IPA at 7.8%. Yes, bring me that. Thank you, please. Yeah, I will have it.
That's right.
On the website and on the can, in small letters on the can and larger letters on the website, it does say brewed with English malt and hops in the almost, in brackets, traditional method. Best Bitter is our take on England's great pub ale, highly sessionable and naturally conditioned. If I'm looking for the most vanilla, boring words to describe something, I think naturally conditioned is probably the...
You want oak or cask conditioned
Yeah.
or whiskey aged conditioning. You want something extraordinarily going on, don't you?
Well,
to really appeal to you, to really jump out.
It's not
you.
that. It just feels like this didn't even need to be there. Like when you say that something has been naturally conditioned, that's you telling me, and we just left it alone for a while. It doesn't seem like an important distinction to make.
When I heard the description there, they were saying that a bitter was a pale. Did you say pale ale?
Mm-hmm.
Right. It looks and smells like a pale ale.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the bitters that I grew up drinking in my teens. That's where I started. It's where I gained my experience, because it's my dad that drank bitter all the time. Therefore, I did too. They were darker than this. This looks more like a pale ale airing on almost like a slightly darker lager. Bitters were always darker than this. So therefore, I'm a little surprised that it's not darker than this. That's not to say it's not going to be good, because I'm sure it will.
The description I looked up did say that they range in color from amber to a darker red. So there's a spectrum. This is certainly on towards the amber side of things. It's not a straw colored pilsner or anything like that, but it's
more golden.
To be honest, it is definitely golden. I picked the wrong glass. This is not fitting any of this beer in here, but still.
It looks really good, especially with this amazing backdrop that I've.
You get some haze to yours. Mine is crystal clear, but I didn't get all of the sea monkeys from the bottom of the can. Did you?
I did. No, mine is cloudy.
Good. Oh.
Yeah.
Should have got the bigger glass.
I'm not seeing anything floating in it, to be honest.
No, I just, the metaphorical sea monkeys at the bottom that give it that nice hazy couleur that we appreciate. Yeah. The unfiltered, yeah.
Oh, are we going German now?
The unfiltered effect? No, I was just, it just happens. I just wander in and out of accents. You know this happens. What else is written on?
That was going to be your attempt at British, and I thought, well, you failed that miserably.
Oh, yes, that's true.
That's nothing. Like, you've got wrong side of Europe there. It smells not overly hoppy.
No.
Which is good.
There's kind of a bready smell coming from the can.
A little yeasty?
Maybe a tad, but I can't quite tell. There's also a little bit of a sweetened hop in there somewhere.
The bready hot yeastiness is stronger from the can than it is from the glass.
Yeah, I don't think I'm getting a lot of smell off of the head. Now the head on it is quite nice. That's sticking around. This thing's got, as you say, the legs.
Some legs.
All set?
Yours is very different from mine, and we still got the same beer.
In theory,
you did pour it in the same can, I'm sure, but it does look really quite different.
Well, I didn't get the whole thing in mine, so I think that's the big difference. It's not the full glass.
Okey-dokey.
We'll get there. Second half. Cheers.
Do we dunk in?
All right.
Okay. Oh.
Okay. Yeah, that bready hop. That it's sort of a little bit of a hop, a little bit of a schneef. It's not unwelcome. It's
not. It's really easy. To drink.
That's delightful. That's very nice. I couldn't tell you whether that was an authentic English pub best bitter.
I don't think it is. Not what I would. I would not describe that as a bitter at all. It's a pale ale to me, but it does say it does say on the can it's a pale ale.
It's got a bit of a nip of bitter to it, like a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got a bitter, but it's not like any bitter that I grew up drinking. That's not to say. I don't know. Ross, it's lighter than I was used to. It's a little more hoppy, not as malty. Um, quite delicious though. I
Yeah,
quite like it.
and I feel like so I'm missing out on the English style, but it says but what we're learning is a best bitter. Now the bitter
Yeah.
is I think I'd get a little bit of a hop flavor in a bitter, more of a hop flavor than a malt flavor. I mean, the Beachstone bitter is super malt forward, and I love that, but I don't think that it's exactly what the flavor is supposed to be going for. I think
Yeah.
this one is delivering what's exactly on the can, because if we're
So do
learning
I.
the best part of best bitter is it is a slightly less alcohol percentagey bitter, and an English pub ale. Light in honestly, the color is about the only thing that I can fault it for, but that's not really their fault. Love the head on this is wonderful.
Faulting? In what way do you mean you're faulting the color? What
I
as regards to what?
I just like it to look a little darker, but I think
Oh,
that's
you want
just
it
being
darker.
super finicky.
Yeah. The bit about the best is interesting because I didn't know. I don't think maybe it's not necessarily the weakest they're going for. Maybe it's the sessionability of it
Mm-hmm.
that like you said, you couldn't sit there and have 6 pints of 7.5%, 8% good strong ale.
No, not
For obvious reasons.
not comfortably.
But you could in 4.5%. Maybe you can do that. And the beauty of the bitter I always found, that's one of the reasons why I took to it rather than lager, not just because my old man was a bitter drinker, was because it was way less carbonated, way less gassy than a lager.
Oh, okay. Mine's still fizzing, and the head on it is crazy. So
I'm not saying it wasn't carbonate. Of course it was, because there's sugar in it. It's going to have some carbonation to it. But what I'm saying is, lagers made me burp from the first mouthful of a lager. I felt gaseous. I felt like I always wanted to belch, and I never got that from bitter, because a bitter was I'm going to use the term flat. It was a flatter drink
okay.
than a
I
lager.
I can agree to that as well, despite the fact that some of the best the bitters that I have and enjoy have a lovely a nice head on them, and this one is no exception to that. It is very easy to drink. This is the kind of beer that if you went out to the pub and they kept saying, "Oh, another," yeah, you could come home and get asked, "How many did you have tonight?" and you say, I don't recall. I would forget how many of these I'd have, or I had. Can you say "had" twice in one sentence? It's one of those words, isn't it?
I had.
Mm.
Totally, you can say it one after the other. Rebecca's just used a word that I was going to say, and I'm glad she did say it, because I was going to say it a little while ago. She just used the word floral. I think it does have a bit of a floral palate to it.
Really?
Honey from it. Interesting. So she's getting sweet. She's getting sweetness from it.
I am getting honey, especially off the smell, the scent of this. Very honey.
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely honey.
Well, it's the color of honey for sure.
And I can find it in there as well. It doesn't say that that's what they're using. And when I was looking up English style, everything's the golden ale. Golden or summer has an appearance similar to a pale lager, typically brewed with crystal malts, far lower quantity to traditional bitter. Blah 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 blah. Special or blah, weaker bitter, something the best, the weakest in the range. It's not my favorite beer I've ever had, but delivering on the advertising, what they're saying they're going to give you, I think they've nailed it. I think this is exactly what I would expect if I was a professional English style pale ale best bitter drinker.
Are there professional?
There must be. There's professional everything. But the more I learn about this style, the more bang on this tastes. So I can see why this came up as a recommendation when someone said, "Oh, what's the best ESB?" Is this an ESB? No. If this just said Stillwell Brewery's ESB on the can, I think I would be saying, I want more flavor. I want a darker, a more complicated kind of mixture in there. I want a few different things, and it's maybe a little too sweet, maybe not bitter enough. But if it's a best bitter styled in a pale ale kind of form, I think they hit it.
Right. Can you just confirm for me what ESB means, Ross? Because I've heard two people saying two different things. I've heard one saying it stands for, get this, English style bitter, and another one saying extra special bitter. I think it's the latter. But it could be. Is it extra strength bitter? I don't really know because I've never looked into it. I've heard a couple of different versions of what it is. This doesn't purport to be either, of course. It doesn't say it's an ESB. So if you're looking that up, that would be one.
I am, and I have the official answer here. An ESB stands for Enterprise Service Bus, and it is an architectural pattern where a centralized software component performs integrations between applications.
So is that the first or the second one I said?
That was the first one.
It was the middle one.
Why why did it not come up with English style? ESB is an English style pale ale, despite the fact that ESB stands for extra special bitter is what I always thought it was.
Right.
But
so it's not English style bitter, because I read that too or heard that too.
I'm not seeing that. I need to specify with beer. What does ESB stand for? Beer.
Not buses.
Extra special bitters. Okay, there's that.
Right.
English style pale ale. ESB. ESB stands for extra special bitter. So craft beer, craftbeer.com. How can you call them wrong?
No, absolutely. None of these three things that I'm going to be enjoying this evening, none of them say ESB. The only two that we've got that said ESB, of course, are the to me, off the top of my head anyway, of course, was the Lazy Bear, their ESB, and of course what seemingly is the go-to in this wonderful province, Propeller's ESB. And talking about that maritime craft brewing group thread, ESB romped home. And so many people said it's the best English style bitter that's available here in the province, and
Propellers?
I had to agree with them. But I haven't, of course, tried any of these three. I was just assuming from the ESBs wise, but of course there is a bunch of British style ales. But to me, the ESB by Propeller is so damn delicious. And they've been doing it a number of years, so you'd imagine that they'd have got a pretty good recipe going that people love, and clearly they do. Certainly the enthusiasts of craft brewing. I'm liking this, Ross. I'm liking this, although I hesitate to call it a bitter. It's a pale ale, but there again, I'm learning here that pale ale be a bitter.
They can be slightly similar if they're of a certain style or type. I'm liking this as well, and I think I'm quite happy that it does say the words pale ale on its side, and it says best bitter, so they're advertising this is that maybe a weaker one, not a very strong one, maybe also not a very strong flavored one. So it's just kind of, here's an easy sessionable in an English style.
I would again, I'm going to hesitate to call it particularly sessionable, and I think that might be because I've not had that much to eat today. I haven't filled the old belly with something to mop this golden juice up with, so I'm already feeling this in my head, and I'm only about 2/3 of the way through the glass. I've got 3 cans to drink this evening. This could be a rough night for me. I think I might be slurring very, very early.
I seem to recall you saying the words "that's a lot of peanuts," so I think you've either ordered something very fancy on Amazon, or you do have some snacks.
Yeah, Rebecca just threw some peanuts down.
I was hoping maybe there was some packing foam involved.
No, not at all.
I want to immediately give that a 9 out of 10 for being what it said. That for what it's giving you, it's saying this is going to be a best bitter English style pale ale. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what it is. But I just can't bring myself to go quite that high. It is very good. And I like to rate it on, so out of a 10, a perfect 10 is the perfect English style pale ale. So I think I might go high 8s. I'm trying to decide if an 8.9 is too high and an 8.7 is too low. Then, yeah, I think I have to say an 8.8. 8.8 from the Canadian judge on this one. I have lost my co-host. He has lost his interneted connectivity. He's having connectile dysfunctions. But I definitely don't think he agrees with me on the 8.8 for that one. But, the legs are still there. There is still the delightful head coming down the outside of my glass there, which I'm still trying to identify what kind of glass this is. It's such a cool glass, I had to pick it up. Literally. And it's sort of floated at the bottom, almost like a wine glass, but it eventually comes up into this little stouted rotund and then thinned out more like an hourglass. See this part? If you just had it like that, that'd be... It's a Pilsner glass with a stem. Oh, maybe I'll look that one up. Pilsner glass with a stem. Pilsner... I think it's Pilsner. There he is. He's coming back in. Glass with a stem. Let's try this. Hello.
Yeah, I've gone off Wi-Fi again, so we're going up to space again. I don't know how long this is going to last.
It's back to space. Pin that and then do... Ah! Oh, something's going horriblous wrong.
Can you hear me okay, Ross?
I can.
Okay. You've gone very quiet again. I think it's definitely because of the link I have.
No.
You gave that 9 out of 10. That's crazy numbers.
I
I
dropped it down to an 8.8 because it, again, not the best thing I've ever had, but it gave me what they offer. What they were suggesting was going to happen, happened.
Okay. Yes, it's a pale ale for me, and as I just mentioned, maybe I've been disillusioned all these years, thinking that bitters were different from pale ales. Well, more fool me. It's not a traditional bitter as far as I'm concerned, but it's really nice pale ale. So I will give it really good marks. 7 out of 10.
Fair. I'm leaving a tiny amount at the bottom there.
Yeah, me too.
I'll need to, I guess, yeah, because I need to go back to that while you're having your old loyalist when we get around to that. But I don't know why I'm showing the Annapolis Brewing. Finally, we get to the spot that I'm in right now, in behind me here, from Annapolis Brewing Company, the busiest can of the two. The Stillwell one was a bit more reserved, but this one is trying to get right in your face. Annapolis Brewing out of Annapolis Royal, along the way in Annapolis County. It's Triple Annapolis. Fenwick's Ale. Couldn't tell you if this was Mr. Fenwick, Colonel Fenwick on the can itself, but it's a man in some sort of, it looks like a British uniform, I'd have to say. 'Tis a red coat, and I know, being a proud Scot, that you're supposed to call them red coats. But with the Union Jack plastered all over the place, there's a few delightful barrels, and it's I'm trying to, it's the style of, it's certainly an not animated, but a cartoon, drawn. Certainly not going for realism on the can. Does say 14 IBUs on this one. We couldn't find out what was on the Stillwell one, but on the side of ye thing, it says, oh good, it's the same thing as it says on the website. This is nice that they're starting to match up. I used to have to look for both. Cheers to the General. Born in Annapolis Royal, Sir William Fenwick Williams went on to become a renowned general in the British artillery and served as Nova Scotia's first lieutenant governor. See, I mean, you learn something new every week on this show.
Amazing.
Impressive. Yep. Light drinkers rejoice. 4.8%, Ian. Light drinkers rejoice. Y'all get involved in this one. Fenwick's is our lightest ale. Nothing complex here. Smooth, not hoppy, and easy to drink. Okay. So it doesn't actually... I mean, this one, it's been in the closet for a little while because I didn't know how to compare it or categorize it. And at the moment, the only thing that tells you what it is the word ale right there in the title, and then just the fact that there's the Union Jack. It's just got this British Union Jack all over the place. So we're celebrating that he became a general in the British artillery. Is this an English ale?
Absolutely. Just because it's celebrating this chap and there's a Union flag on it, doesn't mean to say that it's a British style ale. It's just called. And by the way, I'm just going to be a pedant.
Please do.
And I've been doing that for 56 years almost. Why would I stop now? I believe just as Berwick should not be pronounced Berwick, it should be Berwick, because it came from the English town of Berwick.
Oh, did I say Fenwick wrong?
This should be, I'm pretty sure, since it sounds like he was a British person, because he was in the, it should just be called Fenwick. That's a very English name, Fenwick, and it doesn't pronounce the W. But again, I'm being a wonderfully pedantic. But Ross, I don't. There's nowhere that it says this is a British style ale, is there?
But
I know. I know.
The art.
Flag
It's
right over the
so
top of it.
art.
Yeah.
It's so British made art. So do we need to look up more? Here we go. So on Untapped, the first thing it says is it is a blonde/golden ale. A little fruity and a golden ale. I don't think it's trying to be an English style pub ale, but honestly, if nothing else, this gives me encouragement, because if the craft beer industry in Nova Scotia, if everything was just, here is this, it will have a hop profile of a 2.7 and it will have a malt profile on a certain around a 3. If it's too descriptive, then that means that there is a preciseness in giving that information and trying to over-explain it to everybody. But now that we've got to this point, we're like, this is General Fenwick, and he was the first lieutenant governor. Look, we'll just slap his face on there and some Union Jacks, whatever. He was a general in Britain. It's just Fenwick's ale. And you say, well, what kind of ale in it? And says, I don't know. Shut up and drink it.
That's right.
If it's lacking in over describing what it is, then I think the craft beer industry has got to the point of just going, have a beer.
Well, Fenwick's is our lightest ale. Nothing complex here. Smooth, not hoppy, and easy to drink. I'm kind of thinking, Ross, that this might be somewhat similar to the pale ale we've just had, because it could be a sessionable. It's a similar strength. It's 4.9%, closer to 5. But I by the sounds of it, by the description of it, it sounds extremely similar to the pale ale we've just been drinking. It's a little more. Was that a little more strawy?
Yes.
Straw coloured.
This is very blonde. This is very light and cooler. It's even lighter than the other one. So we are definitely not having ESBs tonight, but we're having.
What about the nose? When you got your nose in there, does it have any similarity to the other one?
Not with the honeyness. No, this is more, but also not longer.
Again. It's bready again.
It's bready. It's a little bit bready. The head is gone nearly immediately. I'm a little bit sad about that.
We both have our Annapolis Brewing Company glasses.
We do. Didn't we get that in a case from the NSLC?
Well, you passed one to me. Unfortunately, my one, I don't know. I've always thought this. Do you remember the can trick that you do you remember the can trick that you do? I would imagine you would. The one that when you just drunk enough out of the can and you balance it precariously on the table, and people,
Yep.
it draws admiration from all.
It does. It's the
Black
easiest
magic,
way
David
to.
Blaine stuff.
The best way to
Well,
entertain
my
in a pub.
glass does that. The glass that you gave that you gave me, kind of, because it's a non-perfect one. Therefore, it's got a little bulbous bit on the bottom, and as a result, I put it on the table and it kind of
it spins
moves around a little bit. So I have to be careful not to fill my glass always to the surface, because the surface tension will just pour over the side of the glass. This is it's much clearer to me in comparison to the previous one. Mine is clearer, whereas my last one was a little cloudier, more of a pale ale. This looks more of a lagerish pour to me. Oh, of course you can't see it because I've got that silly computerized backdrop.
Just
so
put
you
it in the
can't
lower
see
half of your face, and then you can see it. Just drop it in the lower half of your face, right there. Yeah, mine's a
Wow,
little cloudy, but it's certainly golden. It's certainly very straw-like. It's very flaxen, as it were.
Flax. A lovely word, flaxen. Now I'm pouring the rest of the can. The whole thing has gone in, which is great. That a 473.
That also.
Nice. Yeah.
I wish
there
it was
a certain symmetry.
A bit more of the bubbles. I lost many of the bublés.
Okay. It's actually now looking extremely similar to the other one in its pour as well. So it's got that certain cloudiness now.
It's smelling really good, though. Are you getting this? Like a malty, bready. Oh.
Yeah.
Is this going to be really, really good?
This could be very close, this competition this evening. Folks, it's going to be a very close competition.
Yeah, let's get in there. Fennec's going up. He's coming around the last corner. For some reason, I've gone completely Australian, but whatever.
Australian, so did I. I went Australian first.
Maybe that's why. It's these Union Jackets throwing me all off on the side of the can.
All right, we'll end up Russian. You know how it goes.
I know. That's true.
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers. That's for Danya. Oh my goodness, it's totally different. This is... Wow, this is a...
Huh.
Fruitier?
Yeah.
It's almost going into sour territory. That's really strange.
Yes.
Wow, I was not expecting that at all.
Canned a little while ago. I don't know.
This is not a bitter, Ross.
No. Never said it might be. Yeah, I think these just seem to be two-ish beers that were made and canned by some people who had heard of the country England and that it existed. I heard.
But they didn't, like you said, they didn't say this is a British style bitter.
No.
So get that.
I was getting to the point before tonight that this one was just going to go on a night that we have several. There's at least 3 in the cupboard waiting to be waiting to be sampled and tasted that have no description on them whatsoever. They just said, we made this beer because we were inspired by seeing a kite crash into a tugboat on the river last week. And it's okay, it's a kite crashing tugboat ale.
And there's no description of or whatever what beer that's in it. That's rather like, occasionally they have those fun events online or whatever where people stumble across some mystery canned goods in their cupboard without a label on it. They've got no idea what's in it. So they break it open and try it, and it could be meatballs or it could be a tin peaches or whatever. They've got no idea. So there's a bit like this. This is more peachy than meatballs. I've got to say, this is a fruity number. It's soury to me.
Yeah,
so...
I think so. It's like some of the ones we had, the propeller fruity ones, like the Tango and the some of the other.
You had the Tango with your good lady, did you not? A week or two ago.
Yes. Was she available? She wouldn't. No, that. Oh, I didn't. Did I compare that with? I didn't compare that with the Two Crows one, did I? That would have been criminal. That wacky, delicious Two Crows. I did compare it with the Squeezy. That was last week. A Tango lager against that Squeezy. It was a smoothie sour. Oh, that was
right.
It was not a beer. It was a smoothie. That thing was thick. She
This
was
doesn't
mad
taste-
tick.
This doesn't taste like beer to me. It tastes like a sour fruit smoothie. That's not to say that I don't like it. I don't mind it.
I don't hate it. This
No, do I?
I'll tell you what this tastes like. This tastes like a beer that is going to have a really awful tasting back end to it. But it doesn't. The front end says, I'm going to taste bad. Just a second. And then you're like, oh, you're waiting for it. Oh, here comes the bad tasting. And then nothing, it just smooths out on the back end. That's fascinating. It tastes like it's gone off up front and then perfectly smooth on the back end. What a weird flavor sensation.
It tastes to me. I would quite happily sit on a deck in about 27 degrees here and have 3 or 4 of these on a warm summer's day. It's quite kind of, it's got that summery taste to it.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that episode with your tango, but I can imagine it was quite similar. Very fruity, very summery.
Surprised. More by the squeezy and by the tango, but I think I was honestly more surprised with my own reaction to it. I was surprised I enjoyed them that much. I thought, oh, this is okay. This is this is the thing. They are getting to the point where when I drink something that should be drank on a nice hot summery day, I can feel it. I can say, oh yeah, there I am outside. I can feel like I'm there. Oh yeah, the hot beams, just the beams of the sun, kind of that feeling of the sun on your skin. Oh, that nice ray of sunshine on you, where we have definitely not been getting these last few days. So as a full tire skid mark screeching turn, how did you do this past weekend? Were you able to get to and from work I think this was your work weekend, was it not, this past one?
It was my work weekend. Thankfully, I live within spitting distance of the place, as you well know.
So did you just trip and stumble your way there?
Yeah, I really could. I could get there probably a half-hour walk if I had to through 8 feet of snow.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, let's be honest, we got off fairly lightly, did we not? Here in the sort of mid to west valley.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, if you go beyond Windsor and it started to get a bit more hairy, and then by the time you got to the greater metropolitan area, it was very dicey. They had something like approaching a meter at the airport, which is apparently the biggest single snowfall they've had in 20 years.
But here's the thing. The thing that it didn't accumulate and give us, record-breaking, I don't think, snow. It might have given us record-breaking snow. It was very windy, and it all blew all over the place, so it's kind of weird. There's these huge drifts, and they're over in Canyon somewhere. But it's the first time in my lifetime that I can remember waking up to the same storm twice. That's never happened before. I think that was the thing that really got to, because usually sort of you go to bed and there's a storm, and it'll be over by the morning, and in the morning then a little bit more and it's just finishing, and then the sun comes out and it's delightful. But no, you woke up the next morning, still storm. What about later in the day? Storm.
You waking up from a snooze with your boy. It was literally going to bed the following night and then waking up after another 7 or 8 hours.
And the second morning, the sun trying to come up. And it's still cloudy. It's still flurrying right now. This started, what was it, 3 or 4 evenings ago. This is on evening 4, and it's still overcast, and it's still kind of have a little bit more snow. I don't think it's full yet. Quick, hang on, Finnick, come over here and add some more snow to this stupid, sniveling little province that has the audacity to call itself New Scotland. I don't know why it talks that way, but that's the voice of weather.
I can imagine he's a British general. Did he say he was? So of course he's going to talk.
He's going.
They still talk like that now in 2024. Never mind 250 years ago. But the thing is, do you remember? Of course you remember. It's only 8-9 years ago, that biblical winter we had, where we got to sort of halfway through January, and we were all slapping ourselves on the back and saying, "Ha! This winter, it's awesome. we've hardly had any snow. It's going to be one of those really easy winters. And then it snowed, and then it snowed again a week later, and a week later, and a week later. And it dumped a foot on us every Wednesday for about the next 12 weeks. And we were still digging out in late May. Now, I really hope, seeing as Environment Canada sort of didn't realize that event that we had a few days before this storm was going to be such a thing, because we had almost a foot fall on us a few days beforehand, did we not? 27.5 centimeters.
Yeah, we had a little storm.
MI5. Yeah, and then this time, of course, like about 6 or 7 days later, we had this thing that just put about 4 feet on Cape Breton, and the rest of us had a bit of quite a downpour. Is it going to be the start of something similar? Because if it is,
I had an intriguing conversation with the director of my entire department at my work today, as we sort of chatted. I think they chat usually on a Tuesday, which is funny because chat before coming in here. Mm-hmm. But he pointed out, he said, also, this is an El Nino year. Mm-hmm. And I, a 45-year-old man, said, a what now? And I thought El Nino was just a thing that either happened all the time or at the same time every year. But apparently it's like a storm thing that applies to certain years, but not all years. So this is an El Nino year. That huge storm you're talking about was an El Nino year. And then another, I want to say 10 years before that was another El Nino year, and that was another huge, crazy dump of snow. Thanks to my 45 years on Earth, I can track back 10 years storm recurrences.
I'm not sure. I mean, clearly we've all heard of La Nina and El Nino. My might be able to explain it a little better than me. He's a meteorological professional these days in the Air Force. But I don't know. For some reason, I'm thinking that once every 11 years. Or is it 9 years? That's what the cycle is. It might be 11. But, of course, 2003 to 2004, was it not, was White One. They still speak about that now in reverence.
Yes.
So sort of 10 years-ish from then was that crappy ass winter we're talking about that we're all digging out from,
which didn't seem to get a name. I don't think the 10 years ago one got a name, but the 20 years ago one, that was the White One.
But they were mentioning that. They were mentioning this in various websites as saying this is the biggest single snowfall since White One in various parts of Nova Scotia.
Not here, yes.
We got away with it fairly lightly. I mean, it was still a decent snowfall, but nothing, maybe less than half what they got in more eastern parts.
Oh, yes.
You're doing some research. I can see you're hard at it on your laptop.
Well,
right
I'm trying to look up El Nino itself, and nothing's really saying that it happens. Like, what is an El Nino year? Can be more intense, blah, 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 and a reverse pattern, blah, 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 blah. Affect the global climate. So what is an... Okay, I need to look up what an El Nino year is. So 20 years ago, I happened to be in New Glasgow, which is out in Pictou County, so that's the more eastern side of things, and we got dumped on. We were up to our hips in snow over about, maybe it was about a day and a half. I don't think you woke up to, and that was one of those, it was overnight. It started one day, and then it was a long night. You woke up the next day, and the sun came out, and you could start digging out. So this weekend was... It was just, it kept coming. And even now, it's still kind of snowing a little bit. Like, really? Yeah. Are you not done pushing this out? And I think I heard one of the meteorologists was on CBC Radio or something like that, and he mentioned that you always need to have a degree in meteorology to actually understand what they're talking about some of the time. But he did say that most storms, because of the jet stream here and where we are in Nova Scotia, they come in and they move off. That's just whoosh. That's what they do. And they hit Yarmouth, they thump Yarmouth, they give a little sprinkling to Halifax, and then they kind of see you later. But this one missed Yarmouth, thumped the north, and destroyed Cape Breton. But not only that, it didn't move quick. It hung about. It just sort of just kept farting snow on everybody. Meanwhile, Yarmouth is sitting down there saying, "Ooh, another Mai Tai, Margaret." Yes,
are they talking like General Fenwick?
They are. They are General Fenwick sitting on the beach, sitting on the tropical beaches of Yarmouth in February, as you do, because, as everyone knows, Yarmouth is the Caribbean of Nova Scotia. I really hope we're going to get quoted on this one.
Yeah, the beach.
Since 2000, El Nino events have been observed in 2002 and 3, 2004 and 5, 6 to 7, 9 to 10, 14 to 16, 18 to 19, and 23-24. So it's just what is an El Nino event? Will 2023 be an El Nino year? I don't understand. We need to get your son. Where's Tristan when we need him? He needs to come on and explain El Nino to us, because
you just mentioned about 8 different El Nino years since about in the last 15.
Yeah. Okay. And they're all there.
It's not an unusual event. I don't know where I got the idea that it was sort of between 9 and 11 years. What about La Nina? Don't even go into La Nina. This is not a meteorological
No,
podcast.
We won't bother. This is about as disappointing as when I found out that once in a blue moon isn't as infrequent as you think it is.
Yeah.
Once in a blue moon is like saying twice a year.
Twice a year.
What a stupid concept. There. We're just turning into grumpy old men complaining about the English language.
This is like an orange, fruity, summery beer to me.
It is definitely twisting into something citrusy. And yes, I kind of self-punned myself there with the citrus zest.
I actually like it, but it doesn't taste beery to me, and that's the problem I have with all sours or seltzers, in that I don't think they taste like beer. They just taste like alcohol pops, fruit pops, whatever you call them. They're similarly the alcohol content seems to be similar as well, all within the 5% range. Alco pops, but it's okay.
You missed out on the life-altering Two Crows smoothie sour last week. Because honestly, you would not be saying, yeah, it's a bit like a sour. I would, had I not had what I drank last week. Last week completely changed everything. I think it popped up on the Maritime Craft Brew thing, and it's just, oh, here it is in a glass, and someone said, what is that? That looks like a blueberry smoothie with... It tasted like if you took ice cubes and like a half a pint of fresh blueberries, straight out of Oxford, wham, not Oxford, Nova Scotia, not Oxford, England. We're not getting that British. And then like maybe probably about a shot and a half of vodka. Whip that all together. That's what it tasted like. And yet it's saying, well, this is a beer. Yes, we brew this like a beer, and here it is. It is a sour beer, kettle sour, this and that. This is just a strong alcoholic smoothie. What am I drinking? And it poured. It you know when you pour something thick enough, like when you're pouring a smoothie from the blender, and it does that little plap, 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 where it's not a smooth pour. It's so chunky. So, yeah, it's blooping the little pieces. That happened out of the can.
Wow.
It was game-changing consistency to this fluid. I cannot describe how mind-bogglingly weird it was, but sours have changed for me because nothing will ever come close to this.
So I really need to see that episode. But you've just inadvertently educated me on something, and I need you to explain, maybe elaborate a little more. You just said not the Oxford in England, but the Oxford here. Now, hang on a second. Don't dive in there for a moment. When I've seen, I look, you know, when they say online, I was today years old when I found out that. And something ridiculous that everyone else knows, and you just amazingly, you've had this light bulb suddenly go on in your head. Well, when I've seen Oxford blueberry ice cream here on sale in in local areas. Okay, educate me, because I was always thinking that was something to do with Oxford in England. Are you telling me that it has nothing to do with that? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. There is a community, a small town, a village in Nova Scotia, and if I'm not mistaken, it's in between Truro and Amherst. So as you escape towards New Brunswick, there's Oxford, and it's along that way. And Oxford is for some reason famous for blueberries. They've got a big, I want to say it's probably a cement statue. And it's the big Oxford blueberry. It's a statue that you can find there. They have a sinkhole. My friend Sean and I, on one of our previous podcasts, we got very excited because suddenly there was a sinkhole in Oxford, Nova Scotia. You didn't know there was an Oxford, Nova Scotia?
Well, now, the reason why I guess I jumped to that conclusion, by the way, I'm just cracked because,
Good. Please do.
Stay on track. I'm going to try to stay on track on what I'm talking about, but I have just cracked the Loyalist because you said I could drink this while you were finishing off the other one, the other two. So
honestly,
I have done that.
For everything that we've done, you deserve to drink the Loyalist. It is such a good beer. It is such a good beer.
I am going to. The reason why I guess I jumped to that conclusion about Oxford, thinking it had the British connotations, was because the Oxford colour for the university in Oxford in England is a dark blue. The two famous equivalent of the Ivy League in the USA, the big two in the UK are Oxford and Cambridge. They've had this rivalry going back several hundred years until they both opened in whatever the hell it was, 1459 or whatever the heck it was. There's a huge boat race. You can look that up unless you're familiar with it. You can look this up. They do a big 8-man.
I know. Yeah.
Every single year they compete in various sporting events, and they've been doing rugby and soccer and very famously the boat race on the Thames in London. And they've been doing this for hundreds and hundreds of years. But the Oxford boat rows in dark blue, and the Cambridge crew row in light blue. Now, for some inexplicable reason, I was connecting Oxford blueberries with the colour of the crews that Oxford, or the teams that Oxford University would. Maybe it's purely coincidental. And
you just thought it was a branding thing. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought this Oxford blueberry ice cream flavour was to do with. Gosh, I've been fooling myself all these years, and you've just explained to me.
Next road trip, you got to go and see the Oxford blueberry itself.
Apparently.
Themself. I'm not even sure what it's meant to.
Themself. Something extraordinary has happened to my Loyalist beer.
Oh.
Did yours foam up like this? Can you recall?
I think so. I could probably bring up the video or something like that, but I probably. Not.
Now, what I will say, Ross, right off the bat,
it's the right. It's the right bloody colour, isn't it?
It's the right colour. It looks like a bitter. I cannot get this. I'm never ever going to do this weird backdrop thing again, like you seem to have mastered. Because clearly I'm not. I'm a complete novice at it.
We've been here 3 years. I've been here 3 years doing this. So yes, I've gotten a little better at where I can hold to something so that I can actually see it. Because if you hold it up here, it's gonna disappear and go wrong. Oh crap!
This is a bitter, a darker.
Read the can though, because I think it just says English ale. Ale. It's just ale. It's ale from England. Try this. Here we go. Shut up. Lord Fenwick, you don't know nothing. This is just ale. It's very.
I obviously read this all in the past when you did it. You said several months ago. At the end of American, but for the risk of boring the 0 viewers that we seem to have acquired this
exactly.
Season,
yeah.
At the end of American Revolutionary War, British subjects who remain blah 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 blah. Does it say anything about the beer? Their thirst for British beer. We wanted to make a beer that was loyal to those who long for a taste of the British homeland. Okay, which clearly the Phoenix Ale did not do that for me at all, because it didn't taste like an ale, a traditional British ale to me at all. Maybe they weren't going for it. But
It's just cheersing
now-
him. It could have been a shot of tequila. Cheers to Lord to General Fenwick.
Absolutely. They just stuck a British flag on the front and a picture of a guy, but it didn't taste like an ale to me at all. They didn't say it was going to taste like a British style ale at all anywhere on it. So
It's
it's
very clever how they managed to avoid everything. We won't tell you what this beer will taste like, and then you'll either like it or you will not, and that's fine.
I'm liking the fact that this does say ours is brewed in the tradition of a Yorkshire bitter. So I think I know what I'm going to get here by the time. Using classic English fuggle hops and Nottingham ale yeast that augments the flavours of biscuit and grass with a dry, spicy finish. I don't think I'm going to be disappointed by this, Ross, in the slightest.
Nope, you are not.
And you loved it. Is that what you're saying?
I did. Can you see this picture of Lord Fenwick that I looked up? Here he is. That's him.
Did someone take a picture of him on their cell phone in 1791?
Oh, absolutely. That's him.
Oh, wow.
It's yeah, they had cell phones back then, and I'm just trying to compare it to the one on the can, and it definitely does look like him. Speaking of, I was trying to call you out on your depiction of Oxford University still being around in the 1400s, and I went, oh, there's no way it can be that old, and I looked it up. I went onto the internet, and I learned that Oxford University, there is evidence that there was teachings happening, maybe not organized classrooms. You were very close. 1096.
Yeah.
That is
Been around a while.
nearly. That is 950 years ago. Wait.
Some of the professors are still there.
Professor Gandalf, good friend of General Fenwick.
This has done a wonderful, talking of ice cream, blueberry, Oxford Blue. Look at this thing that's going on.
I am so jealous that you have.
I can't get the whole thing in the whole can in the glass because of the head that it's got going on. So I'm going to sacrifice that last little bit and I'm going to dive in because I don't want to overstay my welcome. And I don't want you to be too jealous as I'm tucking into this thing.
Do you remember the time when we were having the last can, what we purported as the last can of the Imperial Russian Stout from the Bad Apple?
That we thought was the last cans.
I'm pretty serious. I'm pretty sure that you are having definitely the last can of the Loyal List. I thought you'd already drank it, which is why I had it. And
so this is for posterity. So I'm keeping this. Thankfully, this is uploaded for posterity. Have you made sure I got my audio
on? Probably should. Yeah, I have actually checked before now. So yes, you definitely.
I'm going to take a big swig of this Yorkshire bitter then.
Mm-hmm.
Cheers. I've got my flat cap on. I got my accent right. I think at the moment, this is a Yorkshire accent as far as I'm aware anyway. I'm going to tuck into beer and I'll let you know on the other side, all right? Cheers. All right, it's really good as that. What does my whippet think? I loves it too. That's a top pint. That's not bad at all.
Are whippets famous in Yorkshire?
Yeah, they are.
Is that where they're bred?
I don't know if they're bred there. They're like hunting or racing dogs, just like greyhounds.
Can I just say, you Brits are weirdly territorial with your stereotypical isms, where when something happens, someone says, "Oh, that's a Blackpool thing right there," and I think that's like as far away as here to Moncton. But we don't say things like, "Oh, you Monctoners, yeah, you arrange your gardens north south as opposed to east west." We do things a little differently down here. It's very not territorial, but geographically thematic. I am both annoyed and I appreciate the geographic themes of what England does. Because if I mention any town, any city in the UK, you will tell me what it's famous for. Yeah. And I think here in Nova Scotia, it's not that. Like, what is any place famous for? Unemployment. That's about all you get.
I would argue differently that that you also have your...
I mean, I just pointed out the Oxford blueberry, so I can't talk about much.
You also have your stereotyping of various places in Nova Scotia. And I don't know area-wise whether Nova Scotia, how it compares to the UK. I mean, clearly Canada is 5,000 miles across, and it's only 800 miles from north to south in the UK. We've got 50 or 60 million people in the UK packed in. They're not packed in like sardines. They're not at all.
They're not. It's so weird, but it is about the size of the Maritimes, I think.
Okay, but one town that's only 30 miles from another town may, and quite often does have, a vastly different accent. And I will offer Manchester and Liverpool, two big cities, very famous cities in the northwest of England. There's only 30 miles between them, but the accents are chalk and cheese. I'm right. I mean, you're right to some extent that what would 30 miles be? 50 kilometers. It's the equivalent of Windsor to the city.
So if Windsor had its own accent and Halifax had its own accent, but
a completely different accent, and they're both in the same kind of vicinity of Canada, but they have completely different accents, and they are chalk and cheese. If you can imagine some very famous Liverpudlians, and let's just throw the Beatles out there, and they didn't have strong Liverpudlian accents. I'm sure you've heard John and Paul's online. You certainly don't remember them, Ross. You're a little bit too young, but I'm sure you've seen plenty of.
I had the live at the BBC recordings.
Okay. Well, the archival footage from the 60s, when they had kept their Liverpudlian accents a little bit more, is very, very different. And maybe not so different if you're not from the UK. Maybe you don't notice the difference, because some people say, Ian, are you Australian or New Zealander? I've had that. Some people just don't get a feeling for accents.
Just don't. Whenever a Canadian asks you about your accent, just tell them that you're from, I don't know, you could make up anything. Tell them that you're from Albania.
I could tell them I'm from Albania. Well, what I'm saying is John and Paul's accent is very different from what people would recognise in let's say, a typical Manchester accent, which is, okay, a lot of people seem to be into Coronation Street. I don't know why. But if you listen to those two accents, they are very, very different, and yet there's only 30 miles between them. I don't know. I can't sense the difference myself, again, as a foreigner, even though I've been here 16 years. I find it very difficult to ascertain a real difference between the Valley and Bridgewater, for instance. But people say there is a vast difference. And yet I can't quite hear.
I don't think so. But not vast. I grew up in St. Margaret's Bay, and I've found that there is just this kind of a way that everyone talks, and then there's just this generic rural Nova Scotia accent, and I can't even duplicate it. I take great pride in being able to duplicate a number of accents, but can I do a Nova Scotia rural accent? No, I cannot, and I'm sad.
You can't.
I can't. I just can't do it. And the only thing that always triggers in my mind is I was helping a neighbor, re-shingle his house many, many years ago. This is something like 15 years ago. And someone had a nephew who had a cousin who had a friend, and he owned his own roofing company. So they asked him around. They said, oh, let's bring him around. As a young guy, really nice guy, really great guy, a great roofer, honestly. If he's still in business, you should get him. And his name was Nick Mahoney. Nicholas Mahoney.
Oh, yeah.
But, and so he came out and he helped out, and he said, oh, yeah. And the way he was talking. And I couldn't get enough. I couldn't drink in this rural accent enough, but it was the way that certain vowels went. And I remember it vividly in my mind, me saying, oh, yeah, nice to meet you, I'm Ross. And he stuck out his hand, and he looked at me, gave me a nice, firm, business-like handshake. And he introduced himself as Nick Mahoney, but it was the way that he said Mahoney. And I can hear it in my brain. I know what it sounds like, but I can't make my mouth pronounce the last name Mahoney in a rural Nova Scotian accent. I've heard it 1,000 times. And it's this weird, it's on the O. It's Mahoney. So Mahoney is there. But in a rural Nova Scotian accent, it comes out as Mahoney. There's this weird kind of, there's this invisible W that only exists in rural Nova Scotia that you can't.
Mahoney.
He's Nick Mahoney. And it came out Mahoney. But it was so fast, but it was 5 syllables in one vowel. It was so fascinating. I'm calling this poor guy out, but if nothing else, if I'm doxing him to our one viewer, if nothing else, get him to reshingle your house because he's excellent. Really nice guy. That's that story. That's me trying on a rural accent. We were Yorkshire. Where are we? Yeah, you're drinking a Yorkshire British ale. How's that going, loyalist?
I'd like to hear your Yorkshire accent because I know you're a big fan of Monty Python, and you know the 4 Yorkshiremen sketch like the back of your hand.
And that's just it. All I can do is repeat what I've heard. So you go, oh, luxury. When I was a lad, we had ourselves 9 cats, and the cats would live on the roof. Oh, you had a roof? Oh, luxury. And so that style. So I remember bits and pieces and kind of turning that. If you hear enough of an accent, you can turn it into new words yourself.
Yeah.
That comes out. That's where my daughter and I have these conversations all the time. She said, I can't do an accent. I can't say this word in an accent because I've never heard that sound. So if you've never heard a sound, you can't duplicate that accent, and that's where that comes down to.
You sort of brought it up earlier on about how we sort of take the mickey a little bit out of different towns because the towns are so close to one another, but they're big-sized towns, and there is a local rivalry that goes on in the UK, in England, and across the UK. The North take the piss out of the South. The South take the piss out of the North.
Oh, you Northerners and your Southerners.
And yet you'd also get Liverpool taking the piss out and Manchester and vice versa, even though they're within 30 miles of each other. So there's constant sort of laughing and rivalry and laughing at your neighbour. You've even got, and I don't know whether or not it's got anything to do with, it may be silly to think this, maybe it's got something to do with soccer, football, this local rivalry that springs out because...
I don't know, localized pride? Because in Nova Scotia, we've got localized pride. We say things like, oh, absolutely. At least we're not out in Pictou. Oh, those weirdo Pictou people. Or, oh, at least this isn't Spryfield or Sackville. Or, oh, my God, can you imagine if we lived in Yarmouth?
Absolutely. So there is
We've mouthed off on this show. We crap on other parts of Nova Scotia because we're here in the valley.
Absolutely.
Whatever.
So it probably is quite similar. So it's a bit of fun. It's a bit of rivalry. It's almost like, we're better than everyone else, even though you're not. When you look at the stuff on the other side of the fence, you do actually think, there's plenty of places. Is it just
that if we had 100,000 people who stayed close by because there was a football team, we would thereby slowly generate an accent for a region? But because there's only 6 or 7 people that live in Windsor, they can't. It can't conjure an ethos, a culture, a thing. It's because the only culture of living in Windsor is we're far from the Walmart. We gotta drive to either New Minas or Halifax. So you gotta go to the next community along because there's just not enough people to snowball this small subculture thing.
I don't know how many people live in Windsor, to be honest, but it's
no more than 6.
Biggest town in the valley.
I was looking up the population centers because I have this friend in Alabama, and I'm always sending things back and forth. I'm saying, oh look, we've got nearly got 100,000 people now.
I've just noticed when after I drunk, like I say, about half or 2/3 of that first pint, I was already feeling it. I just realised that this Old English ale that I've almost finished, in the Yorkshire, is
The loyal.
6.7%.
Whoops,
It's
forgot.
quite a strong ale.
Yeah, I forgot to tell you that.
It is. Yeah, I should have noticed that beforehand, before I started drinking it. I've almost finished it. It's delicious. It is delicious, but it's still not what I would consider to be.
Oh, it's not
an
a proper
style
English
bitter.
pint? Is it still not there?
I really like it. It's still not what I would. Gosh, what's wrong
We'll-
with me?
we'll
I'm
find
being
it. We'll get
too
there.
long.
It's got to be in there
Maybe I
somewhere.
Yeah, it's delicious. I really like it. And of the three that I've tried tonight, I would say that it is the closest to what I consider to be a British style ale. And I do get those hints of spices that they were referring to. It's a little speckled henish, which you can get in the liquor store here. I've
Yeah. We've had that.
the last few months when I've tried things, when I've got that little spiciness going on it's so difficult to explain it unless you're literally supping on it at the time. But there is something in there that I really like. But it's still not to me like an English style bitter.
I have news from the past for you, because I was curious about this. So I looked into everything that we've drank before, and there are 7 or 8 English bitters that we have tried. And of all of them, you gave them between a 6 and a 7 for a score. So you ranked them very poorly. But one night we tried, and this was the same night as we tried the Propeller ESB. We compared the Propeller ESB with what I still consider as the best bitter, is the Beach Stone Bitter from the Sober Island Brewing Company. We both gave the Propeller ESB kind of middling marks, but we both gave the Beach Stone Bitter from Sober Island a 9 out of 10.
Okay.
This was in June of 2021.
June of
2021.
Getting on for 3 years ago, and I gave ESB a middling mark.
The Propeller one, yeah. But we both gave high marks to this Beach Stone Bitter.
And where is that brewed?
Sober Island is in Sheet Harbor along the eastern shore, about a half hour, 45 minutes east of Dartmouth.
Then they're still brewing. They're still going.
They do Beth's Black Oyster Stout.
Oh, right.
So I need to get in there because they've only had the 4-pack. I need to get in there and find out what else they've got, because I love everything they do. It's the good stuff down there. We need to get back to Sheet Harbor. Back to Sheet Harbor, where the accents aren't that different.
Ross, was that British style beer night?
I don't know.
Were they comparable?
I mean, we tried 2 that called themselves English bitters.
Oh, interesting. And ESB by Propeller,
Lost.
I didn't score it particularly highly.
No. Oh, I'll send you the
listen.
video.
Oh, thank you very much. What I will say
Watch it again. For the first
I
time.
have been drinking ESB by Propeller actually for years.
Yeah.
Because it's my kind of go-to for when I want to drink an English style beer. And I think it's perfectly delicious. And in that, again, it's about the 3rd or 4th time I've alluded it to this evening, but it is relevant. In that Maritime Craft Brewing group question on Facebook that I replied to, a bunch of people asked about, someone asked, what was the best English style ale here in Nova Scotia, and a bunch of people had said that Propeller's ESB is, and I absolutely agreed with them, because it seemed to me to be the tastiest, bitteriest beer on offer that I tried here in Nova Scotia. I keep going back to it. I think it's perfectly delicious, and it's a really good alternative to all the bloody IPAs that are on offer. However, I don't remember that one. So it's Sober Islands. What's it called?
So it's the Beach Stone Bitter.
The problem being, of course, that I don't say it's not a problem at all. ESB is available in every liquor store in Nova Scotia because it's so bloody good and people buy it. So I'll keep buying it. If that one turned up and I thought it was so delicious, it's probably only going to be available, is it not, right at the brewery?
Right at the brewery, and that is most of the problem. Yes.
Oh, and that is the big problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am. Oh crap! I'm finding it. What? I'm trying to find it for you to at least send it to you. Yeah, here we go. Okay, I found it.
I'm giving this the Loyalist, by the way, and I just noticed because you're big. Is that your microphone? The big round thing that's right in front of you? Is that your microphone?
It's
what is that?
Part of the microphone.
Okay, it's been kind of blocking out what appears to be the top of a maple leaf all this time, and I've just noticed it.
This is my $16 Toronto Maple Leafs jersey that I found at Valley Village one week.
That's awesome. It's a 6.7 Old English style ale. I think it's quite delicious. I really like it, and I was going to say I could drink a fair bit of it, but I can't because it's 6.7%. It's really tasty. It tastes a bit like, Ross, a Christmassy ale, a Christmassy English ale. So it's got a bit of spiciness to it, and
I very much liked it, and I was very sad to hear that they were no longer making it. That was the worst part. I may have
drunk the last can. Right. Well, I'm sorry to hear that too, because it's like a lovely Christmassy. The Garrison all lit up. I drank another pint of that last night, by the way. The all lit up that I thought was the best Christmas ale we tried at Christmas time. This actually reminds me a little bit of it because it's got that sweetness and that spiciness to it, and it's the similar strength too. It's 6.7%. It's very lovely, and if they're not making it anymore, well.
I think they've got another bitter on hand. I forget what, but they got something else going at Saltbox, and I need to go and check that out. There's so many other delicious things, and I always check it out. The Atlantic Canadian Beer Blog has some recommendations, but there's new stuff coming out all the time. We're never gonna drink Nova Scotia Dry. We're never gonna run out of beer. It's not gonna be a problem.
We can try. We can only try.
It's an attempt.
We'll give it a go.
Attempt.
The winner for me this evening, if there was a winner, would be the Old English Ale, just because it's the closest that I would think that I would regard to a bitter in the UK.
Oh.
The Phoenix Ale was crazy. It's like a fruity, soury thing going on. It was all right.
I liked it, but it was unexpected. Yeah, it was. I think I decided in my head I was gonna say what I was gonna say, like a 7.8, 7.7.
Really, that high?
Yeah.
Phoenix.
I mean, it was flavorful. It was tasty. I liked it. It's just the description was a little.
Not lacking in flavor. In fact, I've got a little bit left over here. It's not lacking in flavor. I don't know what it's going to do to me now after the bitter. Here we go.
Oh, probably not good things. Oh, yes, I think I spoiled you with the Loyalist. That's not a happy face.
No, but it doesn't. It's actually quite smooth. You think, like you said, it's going to hit hard, and then it doesn't.
It tastes like it's about to taste disgusting. It's such a strange beer.
No, it's quite kind of weird. It's a fruitier, sourier thing that I really want, but it's not terrible. It's kind of summery, and I'd give that 6.5. I quite like it. It's weirdly.
No, that's a good
the best
good
bitter
lead,
by Stillwell.
Lovely, well done.
Now I'll finish with my Old English. At least that tastes like beer. I'm out of here. Good night.
That's true. Oh, at least you got to have 3. I'm so jealous. I would have had another Loyalist if I could find it. Thank you very much for joining us. We have our podcast is available, Drink NS Dry, at all podcasty places, and we're here once a week live on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@drinknsdry, or you can find out a little bit more at drinkns.unsupervised.beer. Thank goodness I made that be lots of different things. And Yeah, I think that's about it. There's a Facebook page too. You can just look that up. I don't know. Search based on Drink NS Dry. We're the only Drink NS Dry on the internet. I'll say that happily. That's the thing. But thanks again to Ian, my co-host, for being here. And we're here every Tuesday live at 8 p.m. And we'll see you next week. Good night.